Al, any luck finding someone to help us gain passage to Tokyo Disney Sea?
I gotta say, Freddy, the options are slim, especially in spite of us being among some of the world's foremost explorers and adventurers here at Adventureland Day.
That's coconuts. So you're saying we have no way of getting to Tokyo Disney Sea to try to stop Felix Casablanca and his men from stealing even the most priceless SEA artifacts?
Well, not exactly. So out of sheer desperation, I decided to go to the top of the Explorer food chain here at the event and talk to the head honcho himself.
Trader Sam?
No, not that head honcho, Freddy. The man behind the magic of Adventureland Day. Tiki Tony!
Oh, Tiki Tony! Cowabunga, that's great. Did he know someone who could help?
He actually did. In fact, Tony himself offered to fly us in his patented Tiki Flyer air dirigible.
Oh, that's great. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's hit the skies.
Well, hold on there, Flyboy. Tony's still hosting this Adventureland Day event. In fact, they still have the sing-along and the scavenger hunt, along with a ride on Indiana Jones and the Jungle Cruise.
Man, talk about a jam-packed day. I love Adventureland Day. But this is great for all of these adventurers. It's terrible for us. The longer we wait, the more opportunity we give the bad guys to get the goods.
Ah, true enough, bud. But honestly, we don't have much choice. And I think I actually have an idea to make the most of our time while we wait.
And what's that?
Well, we've been heavily researching the Tomorrowland Theater before this adventure derailed us, right?
As skippers, we know a lot about derailment. Yeah, so?
Fair enough. But Adventureland Day has brought together some of our favorite friends and listeners after many years away from one another, right?
Yeah.
And the Hojo Anaheim is just down the street, and from what I hear, they have a ballroom that's just itching to be used, right?
Right.
So do you get where I'm going with this?
I get exactly where you're going with this. You want us to use the ballroom at the Hojo Anaheim Hotel to create a 2-scale version of the Magic Eye Theater and host a 2-man performance of Honey, I Shrunk the Audience for the staff at the hotel?
Yes! Wait, what? No!
Oh, I had costumes and everything.
I gotta say, man, I applaud your insane leap of creative logic there. That was really well done. No, what I'm saying is that we gather a group of our listeners, head over to the Hojo Anaheim Hotel, and record an episode of the show in front of a live audience.
Oh, well, it's not as amazing as my original idea, but I'd still love it nonetheless. I can't wait to see some of those folks. Let's do it.
Okay, yes. Okay, perfect.
Al, who are you on the phone with?
Okay, thanks so much. All right, we'll see you soon. All right, bye.
What gives, Al?
Oh, sorry, I was on the phone with Heather over at the Hojo, and she said the space will be set up and ready in 15 minutes. Freddy, we're doing a live show!
Huzzah! Let's not waste any more time. Off to Hojo Anaheim.
We came up, and for those who have been to the previous live taping, you'll remember that we did this. I feel like this is a great tradition for us to have, is before we actually start the show...
Clap on the... after
5,
the
4,
one.
3, 2, 1. Clap.
Okay, you got it?
There we go.
All right.
Here we go. Counting down from 5. In 5, 4... Sorry, we do that on Zoom. Like, I do this to Freddy. All right. In 5, 4... 3, 2, 1.
Hey!
All right. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of The Backside of Water, a podcast that delves into the rich history, awesome stories, and fascinating details behind your favorite Disney attractions. I'm Alex Stewart.
I'm Freddie Martin.
And I'm Dusty Sage.
Wait. And on this very special live episode of the show... Wait, did you say Dusty Sage?
Yeah, it's me.
Wait, as in the micechat.com Dusty Sage? That guy?
Yes, that's me.
But wait, how did you get in here?
The door was open.
Well, and how did you get up here on the stage?
Well, it was the only seat available in this sold-out room.
Wait, and how did you get that mic in front of you? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. How did you get the mic in front of you?
I'm not giving away all my secrets.
Security.
Well, wait. This could be a good thing. I mean,
Wait, a good thing?
yeah.
How could this be a good thing, Freddy? The founder and CEO of MiceChat.com just randomly wandered into the room where we're recording a live episode of the show, waltzed up on stage, and was given a mic by your buddy Dennis, who you claim was a highly trained nightclub bouncer capable of protecting the stage from any security breaches.
Okay. I'm starting to think that Dennis may have lied on his resume, but regardless, Dusty is a great part of the Disney fan community. He's foundational nowadays, and might I add, he's a great source for Disney trivia and history.
Well,
with Annie still on maternity leave, we need a third person who can talk Disney history with us, and Dusty is the perfect guy for the job on this episode.
well, if you put it that way, I'm in. Just as long as you promise to vet our bouncers much better next time.
Oh, yes, deal.
Well, in that case, friends, we'd love to welcome to the show our very special guest, Dusty Sage.
Well, the thrills are going to keep on coming in this episode. We've got Disney history extraordinaire Dusty Sage on, and we're recording this just a churros throw away from Disneyland at the lovely Hojo Anaheim Hotel and Water Playground. I can't wait to use my wristband there.
Hold on. I really
better?
want to talk about that because the Water Playground is the funniest place to see a Freddie Martin in the wild. Like I would love to watch that happen. I mean, honestly, this is something that is really, really exciting for me. So, first of all, for those listening at home and those who are on the live right now, we just had a really special event for the past couple of hours hanging out in the House of the Retro Future Suite here at Hojo Anaheim that was inspired by the Monsanto House of the Future.
Go Monsanto!
Yeah. Oh. About that. Is it hot in here? About that. So we just had a great time talking history, getting to know all these awesome people here in the room. And again, I want to thank Heather and her team here at Hojo because this was absolutely magical. The crazy thing is, it's been 3 years, almost to the day, that we have recorded a live episode like this. So it's actually really, really special to come full circle like this and to do it in such an amazing spot like this that has so much Disney history. And speaking of history, we need to dive into some right about now. Folks, this episode is going to be covering the storied history and often overlooked part of the park. A part of the park that is currently shuttered, but is such a part of the history of Tomorrowland that we absolutely have to cover it in spite of its operating status.
That's right. Today we are going to cover the ever-changing, ever-growing, currently closed as we record this episode, Tomorrowland Theater, which we'll go into the names that it has had over time a little bit later.
Now, with that, let's go ahead and jump in, or let's dive. Actually, let's delve into it.
Oh, wow. He's delving, or...
I have to say that people have criticized me for many years about using my word delve. Because Harrison took it as like a game that he would count how many times I said delve in an episode. And I didn't think that it was that bad until I listened back to the episodes from like 8 years ago, and it's terrible.
Delving is such an American thing to do. I mean, it's just
Look at
delve
me, Freddy.
here,
I
we
clearly delve
there.
all the time,
Yeah.
especially in churros. But before we jump in, what I want us to do first is...
Drink.
Dusty... Exactly. Dusty... You're here with us today. I want to get to know a little bit about you and your pedigree as a Disney aficionado. So tell us, Dusty, what got you into Disney in the first place is a question I have.
Let's delve into that.
And drink.
I'm the old man of Disneyland at this point. I've been writing about Disney and engaging the fan community since mid-90s. So before there was really an internet, there was just you'd get a disc in the mail for AOL and CompuServe. Some of you are not old enough to know what that is. But every morning I would start a chat group about Disneyland. At the time I was living in Kansas. That's where I was born and grew up. But I spent a few years living near Disneyland when my dad was on assignment, and it stuck. So the rest of my life was devoted to Disneyland and getting out here. And literally, the day I graduated from college at the University of Kansas, I packed my car with my 2 dogs and 1 suitcase and the $350 that I had saved, and I drove out to California. No job. Wow. What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
It's like the story of a Disneyland e-ticket attraction. What could possibly go wrong? And then it all did, but I ended up, writing and devoting my whole life to Disney, basically. Wow. Yeah.
So were you a fan of Disney growing up all the way through?
All the way through. My grandfather had a diner in Kansas City that was located next to Walt's original studio, Laugh-O-Gram.
Yeah, amazing.
And so, it's kind of sparked my interest in this Walt Disney and, Mickey Mouse. I, of course, loved Mickey Mouse. And that's what started it all. And so it's all been about kind of finding out more about Walt's history and trying to preserve it, making sure that people know what it's about and that they understand really how important Disney and Disneyland is. And I don't think normal people, muggles, understand Disney. I've never actually worked for Disney. I worked for various other types of companies in telecommunications, and I did marketing and PR, and I still do all of that today. But when you tell people, they ask, "What are you doing this weekend?" And you say, "Oh, I'm going to Disneyland." You don't always get "Oh, that sounds fun."
Yeah. You get sideways glances.
Again?
Yeah. So let me ask. I've got a question for you. Why did you come west instead of east?
Well, I could have gone to New York, I guess.
Well, I mean Florida. Why come out this
Disneyland?
way?
Well,
why Disneyland over Disney World?
That is everybody's going to hate me. That's the fake Disney.
I don't think you're going to have haters here. I think
that's where Disney makes its money. But Disney's heart and soul is in California, where the studios is, where Walt grew up, basically, where he started his company, and where Disneyland is. So it was really never a question in my mind, although I love Walt Disney World, and I try to go a few times a year. Disneyland is where my heart is.
I think that deserves a round of applause. And just if I may, I don't mean to butter you up too much, but honestly, folks, if you're younger than 40, maybe even younger than 30, you don't know what it was like before the internet when there were no resources. There was a magazine called E-Ticket magazine that was actually written by was somebody who had the heart and the soul and the desire to ask Imagineers questions and write articles about it. And that was the first place where we could get any sort of backstage ideas. And so Dusty and people like him who were asking the same kind of questions. I mean, this is Genesis of that Disney fan community, and we actually owe you a lot. And so I just want to thank you really quick for that.
He paid for our parking.
No, he started this thing, so give him a hand.
Which, to piggyback off of that, to butter up even more, bring on the Crisco. When I was working in the park back in 2007, I remember that your name was the first name that I heard as far as like OG quote-unquote Disney influencers. People would be like, Dusty Sage said this, or Dusty Sage said this, or
That's
this.
right.
And I remember thinking, who's this Dusty Sage?
Such a mysterious name.
Exactly,
Yes, yeah.
exactly. And now I'm sharing a stage with the Sage.
Wow.
It's perfect.
Oh my gosh.
Well done.
Well, that's the nice version of the
that's
story,
pretty good,
folks.
right?
Because for the longest time, back when he was working in the parks, they were not allowed to talk to us because Disney didn't know what fan communities were or online. There were no influencers. And so if you were talking to somebody like a Dusty Sage, it was a terminable offense. So you could lose your job.
Right.
So imagine by the time that I was when I first started writing about it, I got to meet people like Bob Gurr and Tony Baxter, and it was easy. You could call them and talk to them. There was no repercussions for them. But then once the internet started going, they were very quickly told, you can't talk to anybody because they might put it online
on the internet.
Dangerous. So it all sort of went away, and so all those early things like the E-Ticket magazine kind of it dried up, and then it was just us speculating on what was coming and why and how horrible it all was and why light bulbs were burning out, and that's where it all started.
That's amazing.
Very cool.
So clearly you are qualified for the job.
We'll say that.
For now.
We'll let the audience judge by the end of the episode. I'm looking forward to this. And that's one thing that's really interesting. So, for those of you who have listened to all of the episodes of The Backside of Water, first of all, I'm
3 times.
sorry. Yeah. And second of all, you'll notice how extremely rare it is for us to actually have any sort of guests on this show. In fact, it's unheard of. We don't do guests. So that shows how special Dusty is to join us up here. And that's something that I'm really excited about. I'm also really excited because contrary to popular belief, this show is scripted. And I don't know if we've ever had an official episode that's gone unscripted, Freddie.
Nope.
Except for today.
Let's do it.
Heaven help us all.
It's a good thing because I can't follow a script.
If you listen to our show, Dusty, we can't either. So we're definitely in good hands there. So with that, let's jump in. This all started with the flying saucers.
Flying saucers. You guys remember when we talked about on our
Hall of Forgotten Tomorrowland
Hall of
attractions.
Forgotten, yes, the Hall of Forgotten Tomorrowland attractions, where we were going back in time to a time where I don't think any of us were around to remember things.
Did
like
anybody
the flying
see
saucers.
flying saucers?
You
One
did?
person saw flying. Did you ride flying saucers? Did you break down on flying saucers?
I don't remember.
That's great. Everybody point at her and say, "That's awesome."
Well done. You're a celebrity.
She basically just told us that she is old enough to have an AARP card.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So right in that area where the flying saucers were, they took out the flying saucers and said, we need an entertainment venue. And that's where they decided to put some seats and a stage.
And that opened the doors to the Tomorrowland stage. Which, I mean, to be completely honest, I don't know about you guys, but I was looking through, they claimed that this is like the place where all of the hot acts
Yes.
would showcase. And I'm not going to lie, when I was going through and looking at some of the hot acts that were being showcased,
Rolling Stones, the Beatles.
Randy Sparks and Back Porch Majority,
Oh, so there was no Beatles or Rolling Stones?
The New Establishment, Jack Carter and J.P. Morgan.
Yeah, none of those. Now,
Donnie and Marie Osmond.
yeah.
Which is actually, at least there's Phyllis Diller.
Phyllis
was
Diller,
one
that
I
was
actually
great.
Knew.
You know, and that just makes me always, every time I hear Phyllis Diller, if you guys grew up on TV, she was this wonderful woman, comedian. She was awesome. But I always can't help but think of Weird Al Yankovic singing, "It's Phyllis Diller."
Yeah. Fair enough.
Oh my
So-
God, you just lost the audience.
Exactly, like, huh? So one that that stood out to me was Scatman Crothers, and
Oh,
I
yeah,
only
yeah,
know
yeah.
Scatman Crothers because
Howdy.
well, I just know him. I mean, this is going to get graphic, but I know him from getting an axe in the chest in The Shining. Like
Oh,
that's what I saw,
yeah,
and now I was
yeah.
thinking like that scene in The Shining on the Tomorrowland stage was a weird juxtaposition.
Don't
for
think like
me.
that out.
Sherry Lewis hit the
Yeah.
stage, and I'm
Yeah.
wondering. I'm
With
assuming
Lamb Chop?
with Lamb Chop and Charlie Horse.
Sure, I remember I saw the Carpenters on that stage.
Oh,
That's
Yeah.
a big act.
do tell. How was that?
Who knows? It was a long time ago, and I was with my parents.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see the characters and ride the rides, but they
Ah.
wanted to. You would go to Disneyland for concerts back
Yeah,
then.
right.
They had concerts also in Tomorrowland on the Tomorrowland Terrace stage.
Yes.
There were 2 stages, both had live music, and then oftentimes also in New Orleans Square.
Yes.
Sometimes even on the Mark Twain.
No
A
kidding.
lot of entertainment at Disneyland.
Yeah.
See, I was pre this era because I mean obviously I wasn't raised in California, and so I'm trying to think of the first time that I went to Disneyland. It was probably like 1996, I think I would say. So I was like 11 or 12 the first time that I went to Disneyland, and so I never got to see any of this stuff. It was already scrapped, and so I didn't know Disneyland is that kind of venue. So I would love to hear kind of your guys' thoughts on knowing Disney as a place to go see music.
Well, if you go back, so right now they're doing the date nights at Disneyland, and those were really opportunities to show off great acts, and they were playing at the oh no, what's the name? Oh, it's they make milk. Well, it starts with a C. Carnation. Thank you. Carnation Plaza Gardens.
Carnegie Hall.
The Carnegie Hall of Disneyland, Carnation Plaza Gardens, was where they would have concerts, and people would come out and dance, and they'd come out on a date, and that was a big deal to go from being a daytime park where you would sweat, buy sodas, and ride rides, to turning this into a nighttime thing. Yeah, I mean, the park wasn't open every night of the week.
Yeah.
Every day of the week, it was a special thing. And so to bring out these great acts was a big deal. And so naturally, they got bigger and better at it. And I think Tomorrowland Stage and Tomorrowland Terrace is part of that sort of answer to that.
I mean, when we're talking big names, Fulton Burley.
Hey, do you guys know who Fulton Burley is?
That's a trivia question that we'll give you a button for. Does anybody know who Fulton Burley voiced in Disneyland? Particularly Adventureland.
One of the cheeky birds.
Which one?
Yes.
So it is.
Michael.
There you go. Okay,
There we
remind
go.
me after I've got
All
a
right,
pin.
we've got a button winner. Very good. I had to throw this one on there. This is just like a very special thing to me. So a lot of people don't know this about me. Freddy's one of the only people I think that knows this about me, that I actually do a lot of music stuff. Like
He's really good.
I play in a music group.
Tell
and
him the name of the group.
The name of the group is the Carpenters.
No, it's not.
Oh,
The Spice Girls.
Yes.
yes, I am Churro Spice. Cinnamon Spice.
Cinnamon. Sugar spiced, yes.
So the name of the band is the Parlor Pickers, and you can check them out nowhere.
He's not joking.
Yeah, I do like, honestly, before I started podcasting, decades before I started podcasting, I was playing music, and the person who got me into it was my dad, and he was in a band that was called Rick and the Raiders. He was Rick. Rick and the Redcoats, because it was based off of Paul Revere and the Raiders, and that's what made me think of this, is the Raiders featuring Paul Revere and Mark Lindsay.
Yeah.
I don't know who Mark Lindsay
Oh
is.
gosh, he was.
That guy.
Yeah, he was that guy.
Okay.
He owned the house that Charles Manson and all their people went to, and on that fateful night.
Is this a true story?
Yeah, in 1969, Mark Lindsay owned that house. That. Anyway. That's a gross story. Sorry.
Wow.
My connection to that was much cuter.
Yeah.
Than
Mine
that.
goes. Freddy
Yours
gets
goes to
dark.
11.
Freddy gets dark. Incidentally, that happened the same night that Haunted Mansion opened at Disneyland. So,
Really?
Hey, there you go.
It did?
Yep.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Guys, Cuba Gooding and the Main Ingredient played this stage.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm assuming this is the father of Cuba Gooding Jr.?
Well, I
is
suppose.
that safe to assume?
No.
No, it's not safe to assume, but we could ask.
Just tell me there was no, like, Conway 20 or something.
Oh, there
like-
was a Conway Twitty.
Was there?
Yeah.
Wait, you guys want to hear something funny? I just learned this the other day. His name is something like Hank Jones, and he used the name Conway Twitty because of Conway, Arkansas, and Twitty, Texas. I don't know why I learned this, but I saw it on the TikTok 2 days ago.
Well, then it has
Wow.
to be true.
So,
Gotta be true.
that was worth the price of the ticket. What'd you pay to get in here?
Nah,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. The last one that I wanted to throw out there is Jan and Dean.
Woo!
Oh,
Dead Man's Curve,
Yeah,
anybody?
don't come back.
Yeah, that's a great song.
Yeah, I
Jan
love
and
the good
Dean
surf
graced
music.
the stage here. But unfortunately, the Tomorrowland stage wouldn't last, right?
Sadly not.
What did it turn into, Dusty?
Well, if you like a high-speed roller coaster style ride in the dark with sharp twists, turns, and sudden drops, it could be Space Mountain.
Yes.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about why they decided to get rid of the Tomorrowland stage. But they didn't necessarily get rid of it fully, right?
No.
They kind of tweaked a bit.
Well, so here, what Dusty pointed out is you need venues for live entertainment. You need the entertainment at Disney is. We're going to dig into this a little bit here, but the entertainment factor at Disneyland is so important. We got parades, we got spectaculars, we have fireworks shows. All that is a part of the whole of building this wonderful place that we love. But without it, for those of us who like the thrills and like going on rides, that we might not notice, but it definitely brings the place down if you don't have a place to sit cool down, watch a show, regroup, get some amazing entertainment. And so Disneyland Entertainment has a huge history. But as Dusty was pointing out, in Tomorrowland, they've got this big stage, the Tomorrowland stage, and they got a little mini stage, and those are for different types of entertainment engagements, right? A small band you might dance to, a big production you might sit back and enjoy. And this complex of Space Mountain, you guys remember in the Space Mountain episode, we realized they didn't just build Space Mountain, they built a complex. And it's this whole thing integrated with the people mover going through it, and the rocket to the moon or was it by Mars by then? It was Mars by then. Mission to Mars is there, and then there's a restaurant and a theater, an arcade. All of those are tied together, and so this theater needed to be a big part of what they do. Plus, it's a major people eater. Anybody know? You guys know people eaters, right? So they need a place to put all of those bodies in a big venue, and so it needed to have.
So dark.
I know.
There's people eaters and there's
bodies. Manson family.
Yikes.
Freddy.
I didn't mean to be
uncomfortable with this conversation.
Yeah. So let's talk
Sorry
about...
to have you on this episode, Dusty.
Yeah.
This is usually not how he acts,
so dark.
I swear.
So I want to talk about Disney Entertainment for a minute. So we talk about spectaculars like Fantasmic, excuse me, the parades.
This is the best part of a podcast. I'm just going to cut in the coughs.
Yeah, cut the coughs. I'll just
it's
get
gonna
closer when I cough.
nothing but
I think
coughs.
is the thing we want to do. So one of my favorites is the street entertainment. So everybody shout out, and one of your favorite street entertainment things. I'll give you a good hint as to what one of those might be. The
Hello.
Yeah, you know what we're talking about? The Dapper Dans, right? They're a great...
We were actually the original Dapper Trio, but we decided to go mainstream, so that's why we're here today.
So, anybody got a favorite street performance? Bootstrappers. Very good. That's the Pirates in New Orleans. Anybody else?
Are they the ones with the upright bass? They're real good.
I like the Pearly Band.
Yeah, the Pearly Band.
I like the Firehouse 5 plus.
Wouldn't it be nice if they were still around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
From time to time, there'll be a Firehouse.
Oh, really?
Group
Well, they
that
do
plays. Yeah.
but are they like animators? Or
No, they would never give them enough time off work
Yeah,
to
exactly,
come down
right.
to Disneyland to play like they used to.
Does
They're
anybody
busy making
remember
Frozen 5.
Anybody remember Billy Hill and the Hillbillies? That was my favorite.
Yes.
With they would play the washboard, and they do Wipeout on the washboard. That was so much fun. I was totally
You
into
can
that.
still see them play.
Go ahead.
They are now at Knott's Berry Farm.
No kidding.
It's true.
Same. Well, I saw one of their bassist plays in California Adventure sometimes too with the.
There were several different casts of Billy Hill and the Hillbillies.
Yeah, that's true.
And some of them ended up at Knott's. Some are still doing other things.
Yeah, some of them ended up in Vegas, baby.
Some of them are 6 feet under.
Sad.
There goes Dark
Sad.
again.
Listen,
Thanks,
Dark
Dusty.
again.
You set the
Thanks,
tone.
Dusty.
I'm just
Hey,
following
You're
you're
just
through.
following
through.
along. Fair enough. Who's this Farley the Fiddler? I wanna
Farley.
know.
Okay, so Farley was amazing. He's just a guy who would wander around Frontierland with a fiddle, and he would sing the amazing Disney songs. He actually retired just a couple of years ago, but man, he's been around since the '80s playing fiddle and entertaining people. Just one guy. It was amazing.
Awesome.
So you get this idea of this small. Can anybody name the Tomorrowland street entertainment, folks? This is a tough one. It's not coming to mind. As soon as I say it, you're going to go, "Oh, you're kidding me." The Trash Can Trio.
Oh, yeah.
That originated at Disneyland.
You predicted that. I was right. Like, you said they were going to go, oh, and they did.
and they all went, "Oh."
Yeah, it's like they
And now
almost had a
theme parks
sign.
all over the world have
a
trash can performances.
Can players.
That's
Yeah.
Another favorite of mine was the Coke Corner pianist.
Rod Miller.
Rod Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was amazing. He would give you all the attention in the world if you would talk to him, and you would think that he remembered you from 20 years back, as though you were really close friends. The guy had amazing. But the reason why I'm bringing that up, right, is because entertainment is so important. We have these small things, which is just a few people playing music. Then we have these larger things, which are like a band playing on a stage. And then we have these huge productions. So, anybody remember Festival of Fools?
I love
That was amazing.
Is that, did
Huge
it have
production.
to connect with
Hunchback, yeah.
Okay.
And it was actually in the strangest of places. It was at the Big Thunder Barbecue.
Yeah, next
Oh.
door. Yeah, Big Thunder Ranch.
That is an
there.
odd spot.
It was in the round, so you'd sit
Yeah.
on the ground. and it was
Oh,
taking
that's
place all
cool.
around you.
That's
It was a
awesome.
really neat show.
And I think the first big production, I could be wrong, but the first big production that played at Videopolis was the Dick Tracy show, which was an amazing big, like, hey, let's just do an entire show on Dick Tracy, if you
Worth
saw the
it.
movie. But then they had, what Disney Entertainment did was they said, we need to create our own content, right? It's one thing to bring in Jan and Dean or Conway Twitty, but you've got to also make your own stuff. And so there was this one band that came out in the 70s, and it was called the Kids of the Kingdom. Kids of the Kingdom, they would hire college students from all over the country, probably ancestor to the college program. You're allowing these, because usually at Disneyland it was just locals who were employed here, but you could audition to become one of the Kids of the Kingdom. It was a singing group, and they would go all over the country singing for Disneyland, and then they would also perform at Disneyland.
A little cringy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Jumpsuits.
Yeah.
A very up with people sound. It was the very spirit of Disneyland at the time.
Yes.
Yeah, but during the day, like earlier in the day, there might be Kids in the Kingdom, and then at night there'd be a band or something like that, particularly on the weekends.
Yeah, so the Tomorrowland stage was where you would go to see this big act.
Yeah.
It is amazing to me because I don't feel like Disney is necessary. I feel like they're trying to do that a little bit more with California Adventure right now, with some stage performances over there. But I feel like Disneyland's musical heritage is a little bit less prominent than it sounds like it used
I
to
mean,
be.
nowadays you would only see a band usually on the weekends on the Tomorrowland Terrace stage, and they really haven't been doing a lot of that, since the parks reopened a couple years ago. So I think that's still coming. Right now they do a lot of DJs and characters dancing on stage. So that's about as far as they're going right
that's
now.
right.
Yeah.
But we are very lucky. The really big Disneyland entertainment is back, like Fantasmic,
Yes.
which is the most amazing live musical and audiovisual spectacular I think any theme park has ever attempted.
Yeah.
And of course the fireworks, which are music set to fire and World of Color. Like there's a lot of great Disneyland entertainment. Stage shows are finally back. The new Lion King show
Yeah.
in
I hear great things.
Fantasyland Theater is awesome. And of course the Fantasyland Theater is where the original Videopolis was, more or less, in that spot. So I can remember dancing.
I missed out on Videopolis, and can I say that when I was researching for this show and I stumbled upon Videopolis and the theme song for Videopolis, my mind was blown.
Yes.
Like it's like a fever dream of Disneylandia.
Yeah.
A Disneyland discotheque.
Oh
Yes.
man, and we had the bangs to prove it at the time. We loved our 80s dance.
Did anybody
club
in here
at
go to
Videopolis.
Videopolis?
Oh yes.
All right.
Did anybody fail in meeting a girl at Videopolis? You tried.
Did they like what kind of? It seems like to me, Videopolis seems like Duran Duran.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that like pretty
That's the
accurate?
feel.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But Oingo Boingo played there live, so dig that if you will.
And it was so popular.
Are there any
Knott's also had
Oingo
their
Boingo
own version, Club K.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Wait, Club K.
Club K at
Okay,
Knott's Berry Farm, same time period.
Okay. Okay. Well, and that's the thing that I think is really interesting is
Not okay.
oh.
Club K.
Okay.
Sorry.
Club K. Okay.
I'm bad.
I'm trying to move on from that.
I know you are.
I
You
can't
really
yes
are.
and past that one. There's some times where improv just kills you. So anyway, speaking of needing to go into a world of 3D.
Oh gosh, we cannot go. That whole setup in entertainment was to get to the one amazing, unbelievable, can't even believe this actually existed, and that was a space age, futuristic Star Wars ripoff heavy metal band known as Halix. There they are. There they are.
Halix heads out there. Unite.
For one incredible year, a band dressed as Chewbacca and women in short skirts with electric lights all over them and a keyboard player with like a alien head. They played, at the Tomorrowland stage.
And
so
was it like a show and they played, or did they just go up there with no explanation, looking like space age people?
No, they were billed as Halix at Disneyland.
So they didn't go up and be like, "We've got a problem and we solve it with music."
If you all keep your seatbelts on, we
Yeah.
might be able to solve the universe, right? That's what it was.
It just seems like a lot of build-up, like as far as character development goes, just for them to play music.
Oh,
so
no.
they didn't have like skits or anything like that?
I never saw Halix, but it's mythology at this
Yeah,
point.
exactly,
Like
exactly.
everybody talks
Fair
about
enough.
it. So much so that at the last D23 Expo, they had a recreation of the band play
No way.
on stage, and they are rumored to be coming back to
Ooh.
Disneyland.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, and since now Disney owns Star Wars, they can get away with it without getting sued.
That's right.
I think that might have been one of the problems and why it only lasted for a year.
Yeah.
So
but,
wait, was it officially tied into Star
No,
Wars?
no, not at all.
but it was
okay.
clearly Star Wars on stage.
Just a big knockoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Star Wars knockoff.
I'd pay
and-
to see that.
Yeah, and it was pre-Disney doing Star Wars stuff, but Disney had another Star Wars thing coming that we'll talk about in a second. But
Yes.
so,
yes.
what came to that stage? What happened after they
Yeah,
were
let's
done
do
playing
it.
bands?
Guys, that's a great question. You know what happened after that stage? 3D happened to that
3D
stage.
happened to that stage.
Dusty's way better at transitions than I am, clearly.
Oh, that's a
Thank
lot of
you.
Ds.
Thank you.
I don't know. If I can go all the way to 3Ds. I can handle a 2D.
But you know what they say, Ds get degrees.
Oh.
At least that's what my guidance counselor told me.
That's probably
and it's
what
wrong,
happened
actually.
to
It's
me.
not accurate. But what needed to happen there is they wanted something to... The stage was finicky because it was outdoors. It was
light in the daytime.
It was prone to elemental things. So you've got light bleed, you've got weather issues. They wanted to take things indoors, but obviously an indoor stage, a theater setting inside of Tomorrowland doesn't necessarily draw or attract people in, because it really, with an open air stage, that's the big weenie of sorts, is the actual music coming from
Yeah,
it. But
you
when
can
you
hear it,
wall
it'll
it
draw
off,
people in.
Exactly, but if you wall it off, they're not going to pay attention at all.
And Space Mountain really became that weenie
Yeah.
for that corner of the park, so they really didn't need the stage. And it was getting more and more expensive to bring in live entertainment. So they came up with an idea of entertainment that they could pay for once and then have the audience come in and see over and over and over again without needing a live band.
Which
And
is smart.
That's how we got. Anybody know what?
Do you remember
what
what
in
came
there? What
first?
was the first
3D
big show?
movie, the first 3D movie at Disneyland.
I didn't learn this until today.
They would blow a dandelion, it would go right into your face. Magic Journeys.
It's called Magic Journeys,
Yeah.
and it was so. I have bizarre memories of this show. You said Fever Dream.
Yeah.
You stole it. That is what this movie was like. Magic Journeys was a 3D movie made with the idea. Let's imagine if a French company in the 1970s decided to make a movie about what they think American kids dream about. and they're gonna have the director who directed the weirdest scenes in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and said, put it in 3D. And so there are kids running through grass and flying kites in the 3D movie, and there was a witch.
Oh my gosh, I was just going to
Do you
ask.
remember?
I was terrified of
I
Magic
have
Journeys when
nightmares
I
still.
was little because I remember like somebody was pointing their finger in your face and it would come and touch you and it was a witch.
Yeah, it was.
Is that
It was
real?
this very scary
That's
witch.
haunting.
That is,
Look it
that's
up
what
on
I
YouTube.
remember about it.
But not only that, like the transition over into Captain EO, you guys remember so there was a witch in Magic Journeys, and she would go, and her fingers would be in 3D in your face.
Yeah.
And in
Real quick,
Captain
can we
EO,
take just a second to talk
man,
about
we're
what just
working,
happened
we're working
right here?
through our trauma right here. So hang on.
I really want to unpack what you guys just did right there. There was you could tell that was
There was
visceral.
emotion, raw
Emotion.
emotion.
We're both afraid of this witch from.
How did that make you feel?
Well,
Can you
Doc,
show us on this doll where the witch
the
touched
witch
you?
hurt you.
It's right here between your 3D glasses.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what seat you were in. She touched, that was incredible to me.
Yeah.
Well, and I actually want to touch on that because we were actually just talking earlier during the House of the Retro Future conversation where we were all chilling together, and we were talking about this connection of fear and Disney together. And I feel like there's a huge element of that. I bet everybody in here can conjure up a memory of when they were a kid and they experienced something actually scary from Disneyland, which is something we don't expect.
Snow White's Scary Adventure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I always tell people, if you're bringing your kids to Disneyland for the first time, the last thing you ever go on, do not take them on Snow White's Scary Adventure, because as soon as they see some other ride vehicle, they're going to have that memory, and they're not going to want to go on
But
anything
to be
else.
fair, now it's an Enchanted Wish.
It is.
It's not
Enchanted
scary
Wish.
anymore. It's just
Still,
enchanted. It's,
Kids today, they just can't handle
they
Disneyland.
can't handle a scary
Yeah.
adventure nowadays. But the memory that I had is actually what we're going to talk about later on, which is The Witch and Captain EO.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember, but it's weird because, and I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that feels this way, but there's this strange, I don't know, tension as a child that you're scared of something, but you're also kind of fascinated by
Yeah,
it.
right.
And I remember like wanting to overcome that fear of the witch, but also being so deathly afraid of the witch. And I got to be completely honest, until I watched Captain EO again, I didn't remember what a visceral base terror I had until I saw her face, and I was like, this just opened up a box that I have not looked in for a long time. And it's amazing that you see this heritage, just like you guys were talking about with the witch.
Let me tie a couple of things together for the audience here. So there was Magic Journeys, and it only lasted for like a minute. Like
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
there
2
for like
years. Less than 2
just
years.
a very
Yeah.
short period of time, and it was replaced by something which kind of reminded me a little bit of the live performances of Halleck's, because it was a sort of space western movie, 3D movie that replaced it, starring Michael Jackson, and that of course was Captain EO. So there was a lot of things happening in that little area that were sort of repeats of similar ideas.
Yeah.
So they took Halleck's, they took Magic Journeys, they combined them together, they came up with Captain EO, which was also incredibly creepy and
Yes.
dark. And even though Michael Jackson was speaking in a super high-pitched voice, it was still scary because he had all these creatures and they were bumbling and doing everything wrong. That was his crew.
Yes.
And then Angelica Houston is this witch hanging from the ceiling, you know, pointing at you. And
You guys just need a show, like a human puppet show, whatever you guys are doing. It's amazing every time I watch it.
we are being operated by Jim Henson.
The Creature Shop.
Which it was the creature shop that did the characters for Captain EO. So
And yeah, let's talk about that actually. Let's talk in depth about EO. Who's seen Captain EO in here?
Very good.
Okay, so the vast majority of people out there, if you haven't seen Captain EO, it's on YouTube. You can watch it.
But not
all
in
its glory.
3D.
You can't watch it in 3D. And, you know, in some ways, count your blessings that you can't see it in 3D anymore. I don't know about you guys, but I find 3D to be unsettling. I don't like the experience. I prefer a
Some
two-dimensional
people
world.
in the audience
you
would
are
say
president.
the same way.
you can ban 3D
I will
for
totally...
everyone.
Hear this now. If you vote for me, I will ban 3D. Everybody. No, I think so. So let's rewind and talk about where this inspiration came from. So obviously, Magic Journeys set people up for the preparation for 3D. But at the same time, we also have to understand that Disney was kind of in a place where they weren't necessarily the hip, cool thing, which for younger people, that actually comes as a surprise, because for younger people, you've grown up and Disney's always been cool, especially in Southern California. It's always been cool to go to Disneyland. But there was a period of time where it was kind of like the Dark Ages, where people were like, this is unhip, this is uncool to go
right.
to. And they found their problem in that very space, and they thought that they could fix it by hiring who? Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. George Lucas.
And what could be
Yes.
hipper than 3D?
yeah.
3D Michael Jackson. That's what.
Because nowadays you think 3D, you know, that's awful, right? Like, but at the time, 3D had been done on television and movies everywhere, but it was usually red and blue glasses,
Yeah, right.
and you know, none of you know
Elvira.
what about the red and blue glasses. Elvira, 3D, come on! But they came up with this new technology, you know, using lenses that allows you to see 3D with
Kodak,
clear
by the way.
screens, you know, like with clear lenses. So it was really a neat technology at the time, but it continues to this day. There's a lot of attractions at Universal and even at Disney parks all over the place, not at Disneyland, that use 3D glasses. So it was really amazing that all the way back, so it was 1986 through about 97 that Captain EO was there. And that's a long stretch.
Yes.
But it had to be because they spent a gajillion
lot.
dollars
Yeah,
making
building this movie.
this
Yes.
movie.
So believe it or not, for the time, Captain EO was the most expensive film
ever made
Per minute,
per
yeah.
minute of
Yeah,
film
yeah.
that rolled through there. Yes, they estimate it was somewhere between like 17 and 30 million. I think that Disney stopped keeping count because it just kept making
their
them more
own
and more
sanity.
depressed.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. But the thing that's fascinating to me when I was looking into this, I think the thing that shocked me is this was Michael Jackson's project. Like, I didn't realize that Michael Jackson had so much creative power that he did. And so for those out there, one thing to keep in mind is at this time, this is the big Eisner shakeup. So Ron Miller's out, Michael Eisner comes in from Paramount, and they're like, who's this clown? And he's like, I'm going to revamp it all. And you guys will hear me say it for the 10,000th time, read Disney War, because that book tells a great retelling of this era in the Eisner reign. And one of the things that he did that was brilliant is he said, we've got to get some relevance in here again. And it worked out in his favor because even though Disneyland was uncool, it was cool to one of the greatest pop stars of the time, which was Michael Jackson. He loved Disneyland. He loved theme parks. He was obsessed with Imagineering. And he came on board when Disney said, do you want to do this? And he was like, absolutely, yes, please. And so they start assembling this team. And who are the people that come and get involved with this Captain EO project, or what would turn into it?
Well, they hired George Lucas to do story.
Yes, to kind of oversee.
So
yeah,
and from with that in mind, it's like remember 83 is Return of the Jedi, and so here it is 84. Did you say 86?
Yeah, so it's
like let's
production,
get George Lucas in here. Let's get him and this is not a partnership with Lucasfilm in the same way that there's a partnership now. It's just like, hey, bring in this other amazing creative in this sci-fi space, and bring his thoughts to mind on it.
Well, and then George
Special
Lucas,
effects.
Yeah, George Lucas brings in who? Francis Ford Coppola,
Crazy.
which is incredible. This is
Incredible director.
insane. Yes.
The Godfather. What?
Apocalypse Now. What's
None of these actually match with like a musical pirate movie.
and that's the weird thing.
Sounds like a great Disneyland attraction to me.
Exactly.
Apocalypse Now.
But again, it really came at if you think about it, something like Captain EO could never exist again because you've got this is Justin Bieber.
Yeah, right.
Or Billie Eilish.
Yeah, well, that's
coming
right.
to Disney to create
Lady
movie.
Gaga.
Yeah. Somebody
in a
like
musical Disneyland
But see,
3D adventure.
even Lady Gaga, I could understand a little bit because she's very theatrical. Who's somebody that that you never
Conway
would guess?
Twitty.
Conway. No, he's too big. But the thing that's amazing is Coppola was on a downward trajectory. Like, he had made a bunch of hits, and people were like, this guy's awesome. And then he made some stinkers that were real big stinkers. And Hollywood was like, Coppola who? And so he came at a time where they could get him for a good price. And so they got him for a good price. And it was George Lucas who said, hey, you're my good buddy. You're my mentor. Can you come help with this project? And Francis Ford Coppola, I assume the conversation was, well, I guess I'm not doing anything. And so he decided to come on board. And again, the thing that just blows my mind about this is Michael Jackson. I like Michael Jackson's music, and I enjoyed it. He was before my time. I'm not going to lie. He was before my time, and I didn't realize.
Before my time.
Yeah, but I didn't realize how a lot of times we look at a pop star like Michael Jackson and we're like, how much influence do you have? Are you just a talking head? Are you just like a great dancer and a great performer? But he really was smart.
He got to do whatever
Yes.
he wanted
And-
in space and have a great creative input.
And the thing I think is really fascinating about this is he was probably in his mid-20s at this point. Like, he was young, right?
Yeah, I think
don't
he was
know.
probably cracking into his 30s.
Okay,
by then,
but one of the things that fascinated me is Michael Jackson said, film is basically falling apart. There's nobody in film who's doing anything fascinating except for two people, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. And I was like, that's a really interesting observation for somebody who a lot of people just see as like this hollow pop star. To have such a pulse and understanding on basically the future of Hollywood creativity, because this was at their prime, but not before they became, quote unquote, the godfathers of the medium. And so Michael Jackson being able to see this, and that's why he originally had George Lucas come in on this project, is he said, you're one of the only people who is going to save the future of Hollywood. And George Lucas, real quick, I know I'm talking a lot here.
Yeah, we're getting it. We're following along.
But one of the things that I really want to set the stage with, the Tomorrowland stage with, is, yeah, there you go. ADHD does work every once in a while. But one of the things that I want us to set this with is to understand that George Lucas was at this time coming off of a massive, almost like complete mental breakdown after the stress of Return of the Jedi. He's ramping up for Indiana Jones. He's in the middle of creating ILM. He's also got a fledgling Pixar under his wing. And on top of all of these things, he's going through a nasty divorce. And then Michael Jackson says, hey, you want to help me with a space musical? And George Lucas is like, well, I guess I'm not doing anything else.
Just what I need.
So with that, we see George Lucas is not. I mean, I'm such a. As we were talking earlier, friends in the front row, I am such a George Lucas fan that it's not even funny. But we see that he was willing to stretch himself thin to do something creative because realistically, George Lucas, just like Michael Jackson, wanted an in with the park. He wanted a way to be able to find a foothold to get into Disneyland. And this was a great opportunity that then ended up leading to Star Tours. And
Indiana Jones.
Exactly. Yeah. And so at Galaxy's Edge, I mean, you see his footprint everywhere nowadays. But that just kind of sets the stage for the production of Captain EO. And it sounds like an unlikely pairing. And the unlikely pairing made one of the most... I think this is one of the most bizarre pieces of film I've ever watched.
It is, but for Michael Jackson fans, it felt Michael Jackson-ish.
Yes.
So for those of you who know the music video for Thriller, which reminds me a lot of Captain EO in a way, it was Michael Jackson telling a story through song and dance. And that's a very Disney idea, musical stories, but it was a little bizarre.
Yeah. Well,
I read today that somebody called it a space age Music Man. So here comes this guy from another town, and he's going to come to this podunk town where everything's going wrong, and he's going to bring the 76 trombones, and it's going to heal everybody. And that's exactly what Michael Jackson is doing. He's come to this dark planet that's overrun by evil, and if we could just crack the heart of the evil witch music and a dance,
all be saved with love.
Yes. Yeah, it's an amazing moment when she
and it
she
all
melts.
transforms. It's all dark and sinister.
My
she
favorite
looks like the alien monster.
It's so weird. She does. She looks like Geiger. She looks like the alien monster
hanging from the ceiling.
And then she becomes this beautiful thing. My favorite part, though, was when the B-boy robots that are like, and then they transform and they go, and then they're like all dressed in orange tights and headbands, and they look like Get in Shape girl from the 80s. They're just
the
like,
gay men's chorus.
Yes, my God.
It's awesome. I absolutely love that music. And when they're dancing, they're doing this lockstep, everybody doing the same thing, kind of Michael Jackson.
Yeah. I mean, I do have to rewind real quick because to me
I was just getting to dance, Al.
Just go ahead and stand up right over there. Right, ready? So one of the things that fascinates me is the creative process. I love looking into the what could have beens with Disney, and we explore that on the show all the time. Things like Thunder Mesa, what could have been with that? Discovery Bay, all these great possibilities. And there's some that are absolutely just knockout amazing. And then you hear some of these ideas and you're like, what was going on? Was there lead-based paint in the room or something? Because I want to read a Disney Imagineer. I actually pasted this quote into our notes because I want to read this. It's fascinating to me. It says, one of the movie ideas was that the intergalactic music man, the world was all cold and awful, and Michael Jackson would come and help understand that life is better when it's all colorful and warm. The second idea focused on our understanding that Michael loved various characters and attractions around the parks and movies. Peter Pan was one that he was fond of, so we developed a fantasy that was somewhat similar to that music idea, but focused on a band of characters that were more fairy-like and fantastic. We knew that Pirates of the Caribbean was an attraction that he really loved, so on and so forth. They are literally just vomiting everything out, and they're like, maybe something will stick. Maybe something will stick.
Yep.
And EO stuck. And the original, does anybody know the working title of Captain EO? This cracked me up. This is so George Lucas. It was called Space Knights. That's it. I'm like, George Lucas, you are one of the most creative guys, but you can never come up with a title. And it was actually Francis Ford Coppola who came up with Captain EO, and it was short for Eos. Which, does anybody know who Eos was?
Goddess of the Dawn.
There we go. The
Very
goddess
good.
of the dawn. Thank you, Brian.
And that is Michael Jackson, the goddess of the
The
dawn.
dawn.
There we go.
Wow.
Wait, listen to this. Listen to this. The Don Corleone.
Oh,
connection.
Coppola, that's really bad.
It's very meta now.
Yeah, I know. We're
It's
going
a
there.
story within a story within a story.
And with that, thanks for joining us. No. So with this, what we see is George Lucas is on board, but he's stretched thin. Michael Jackson is getting all these ideas thrown at him. They come up with this story, and you'll see this throughout the narrative. There is no real direction in the story.
There's sort of like this podcast.
Yeah, exactly, right? It just meanders. But what you guys are going to see, if only you knew, Dusty, the truth of your words. What you'll see, though, is as everything ties together, there's an odd magic to this. That when you look at it, and that magic, there's really one definition, and it's Michael Jackson's choreography. In my opinion, his songwriting and his choreography. Michael Jackson wanted to be a movie star, and he was a pop star. There was no way for him to get away from that, and that's where you see the genius of Captain EO come through, is his choreography and the music in this thing.
And he really had a lot of creative control. And
Yes.
because he was also going through some things in his life at that point and showing up in the morning to shoot and then disappearing for hours at a time and they couldn't even find him, they sort of just let him do what he wanted to do. And at the same time, costs were just ballooning. So they really had to make this work. It eventually did end up also at Walt Disney World. They showed it at Epcot of all places, right? Of course, the environmental prototype community or experimental prototype community of tomorrow has to have a Captain EO in it.
It all makes sense.
It was in the Imagination Pavilion.
Yes, it's
Imagine
perfect,
this. But so Disney finally starts to get a little uncomfortable with Captain EO. It's a little long in the tooth. It's not pulling in the crowds, and they do something very different and very Disney.
Yes.
And very Eisner era.
Yes, synergy.
Synergy, and what?
Yes, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. So, and I didn't realize this until I did the research that this actually started down in Walt Disney World, and
That's
then we
right.
adopted it. We're seeing a lot of those trends, especially in Tomorrowland. The majority of what we have in Tomorrowland started in Walt Disney World, whereas the rest of the park, it's basically vice versa.
Right.
But I think it's really interesting that we see
Because
that.
after the 60s, Walt has the Matterhorn built, the monorail, the Sublagoon, all these things happen all at once, and that was a magic rebirth of Tomorrowland. But Tomorrowland has always been a problem for Disney because it's impossible to keep up with the future because it gets there before you know it. And when you're Disney and you don't want to spend a ton of money constantly redoing things, it becomes, Yesterdayland very, very quickly. So they just panic constantly and they pull things out and like, who's got something we can plug in real quick? And that's how they've treated Tomorrowland for decades. So we get things like Honey, I Shrunk the Audience in Tomorrowland.
Which I've got to say, me not being a huge fan of 3D, I think Honey, I Shrunk the Audience works. I think it's a good 3D because Captain EO, it's like this, it's blasting out at me. There's little fur balls flying in my face. It doesn't like there's no reason for it. But with Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, there's purpose, that they actually have a stage show. It's like set as a stage show, and it's got that depth, it's got that dimension, and it's got reason behind having 3D, which I think from a story perspective and an attraction perspective, I think it's really good.
It put me to sleep. But not because it was a bad show. It put me to sleep because the floor would move. And it was like being a baby and being rocked to sleep.
Swaddled and
you're running
cuddled.
around Disneyland in the heat and you're tired and you go into Honey, I Shrunk the Audience and the floor is rocking you to sleep. And I would always wake up and get to the end and I'm like, what happened though? Did they make it? Did they blow up the kid?
Did the mice not wake you?
That's right. The mice
flickering-
whipping your feet. Like it was.
That is a little PTSD. Like the 4D situation. Can I just tell you guys, I went on a road trip to Texas with my family, and we went to Legoland Discovery Center. And they've got a 4D attraction, which basically just says, we're going to spit water on you in the middle of the movie. Like, that's what a 4D experience is. And I don't I didn't love it because you walk out of there just literally drenched from head to toe. And I'll go on Splash Mountain for that. But I don't want to be sneezed on by a dog in Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
I get that.
And so that's just my big bugaboo.
So let me tell you a story.
Everybody hold on.
Here we
Hold
go.
on. The old man has entered the room, and I used to work for a children's charity that did work around the world in different countries around the world. And some of those places would do different fundraising things. And one of the fundraising things that our partner in Uganda did was they had a choir of kids that they would send around the world, and they would sing. They would go around and do a tour, and when they would sing, they would raise money for their villages back home. And they're really not exposed to the media stuff that we're exposed to at all. Very surprising for them. And I managed to wiggle a Disneyland trip out of it.
Oh my gosh.
With all of these kids, and got them to perform here at Disneyland. But then we had the rest of the day to go ride rides. And I made a terrible mistake. And I took them on Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. And if there's one thing that scares a person more than anything, somebody who lives in a place where there may be a snake in your room.
A giant one in your face.
There might be one in your house right now that you didn't know about. Is to have a giant snake in a film shoot out at you, and they would not wear the glasses. Forget these glasses, I'm not wearing it after the first thing shot out at them. And then all of a sudden the mice tails were hitting them in the legs, and they're screaming. And I said, would you like to go on the Matterhorn next? No! No!
They saw you as the Pied Piper.
Oh my God. They were between 9 and 16. And they were tormented by Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. They didn't trust me until we did go on the Matterhorn. And wait to hear this. It was so amazing. You know how the Matterhorn, you know how you get on, and there's only a room for 6 or 7 people on a Matterhorn thing. We would load in, and I was the last person because I want to make sure everybody got on before I went on. So I was the last person in the mountain, and everybody else was filing out and waiting at the exit. And I got off at the exit, and there are all my Ugandan friends standing there looking at me like, and I thought I'm condemned. I'm damned. They're upset with me, and they're all talking to their leader. And the leader comes over, and the translator comes over, and he says to me, "The request is to go again." So I won them back over.
And they all lived happily ever after. That's amazing. I loved Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. Did anybody else like Honey, I Shrunk the Audience? Okay, we got a few people out there who preferred Captain EO. It's okay to be wrong.
But you know what? Honey didn't last forever.
No, it didn't.
And when it went away, what did
something came back.
Yeah, what did they replace it with?
Captain
EO. I mean, there were other things. They did a lot of movie, teaser
like little
things,
teasers.
Synergy, right? We don't know what to do with Tomorrowland, but this movie's coming out, Maleficent or whatever. We're going to show it in this theater. And so they did that for a while. And then D23 Expo, they make this announcement. Captain EO is coming back, and you can go to Disneyland and ride it today. And so everybody just left the D23 Expo, and we rode Captain EO and stayed for a while again, but it really, really, really felt out of place by this point.
Dated.
Yeah, and Michael Jackson's already gone at that point,
Yeah.
And
and that's what they said sparked the return was right after his passing. There was a re-spark of the nostalgia. That's when I actually saw it. That's like the second time that I saw it because the first time was so traumatic. I went back and I was like, I'm facing these
Poor
demons.
Al.
I know.
Yep.
Guys, I worked a lot out in that theater though. Like I felt I felt peace after that.
But then there's another, Star Wars kind of connection because they do Launch Bay in what used to be the Carousel of Progress building, was then Innovations, and then became Star Wars Launch Bay, and they turned the Tomorrowland Theater, the former Magic Eye Theater, into a Star Wars explainer video. So it took you through all of the different Star Wars films so you would know what Star Wars was all about. Because little did we know, Star Wars would be coming to the parks, and they wanted everyone to love Star Wars. So it was all Star Wars all the time, and Tomorrowland became sort of a Star Wars land.
And we talk about this in the podcast, that there was a lot of conversation about, Tomorrowland doesn't make a lot of sense. And are we just going to go the route of turning it into Star Wars Land or Marvel Land. I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they didn't.
It almost happened.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that we still get. I'm wearing my Tomorrowland hoodie, listeners.
By the way, everybody, those who can't see it, it's amazing.
It's
a
awesome.
beautiful
I
Tomorrowland
stole it
shirt.
There's
from
some
someone
really,
in the park.
really good shirts. And I think you actually did steal your shirt.
I did steal my
Yes,
shirt.
but you've got a little House of Tomorrow right there.
House of the Future right there.
There we go. But with that, one thing that I wanted to spend like 2 minutes on before we end this episode is, what do you guys think is next for this theater? What do you do? You think that it's just going to sit in obscurity, or do you Dusty's got a coy look right now?
I do.
Is this a coy?
He's admitting to coyness.
I've heard so many projects, you know, Imagineering, they don't just come up with a unified idea and march forward. That never happens at Disney. There are multiple teams with multiple ideas, and they pitch them, and they do what teenage girls do in high school, and they try to, you know, lobby everyone to follow their dream. And that's what the Imagineers, you know, want to do with all of Tomorrowland, and that theater space would just be a small part of it. And think about this. So the former Starcade,
Yeah.
empty.
Sad.
What's happened to the old Carousel of Progress building? Well, it's not being used.
No.
Eventually, the upstairs will become a Disney Vacation Club lounge. Very exciting.
Edge of your seat.
Very exciting. But the downstairs, they're just sort of using for the performing groups and some Disney Institute stuff, but not available to guests. And then you have this huge Tomorrowland theater empty, and all of the People Mover also just sitting there all of these decades, just empty. So that's a lot of empty space in Tomorrowland. Now, something big could happen that unifies all of that, or something much less expensive could happen.
Oh, which one do you think they'll choose?
Captain EO's coming back.
And they did just announce that some Avatar might be coming to the parks. Avatar does take place in the future. It's possible it could be a 3D experience in that theater. That would be the cheapest and easiest way for them to bring Avatar to the parks, and would save us from losing Jungle Cruise or something else in the parks that you love.
No.
Or Soarin' or other places that make kind of a logical fit.
Could
to
you
put
imagine if
Avatar.
they did the Avatar cruise? That would be hilarious. And on the left side of the boat, you're going to see a blue person again.
Yeah.
It's like
They wouldn't need to do it. It's already a jungle. You just need to put a few blue
You
people
just have
in.
a couple of animatronics peeking out, and look at that blue person. They took over a jungle boat. Oh, they're trying to get into the supplies.
That's right.
I think that's brilliant. All right, if you're listening, Disney, you can thank me for
That
that
was
one.
sarcasm.
No, what's that?
I'm
then I
Disney,
get-
and I'm looking at this microphone like it's Disney, and I'm warning
Thank
them,
you,
please.
guys.
That was sarcasm. Please don't do that.
Have you guys heard of Big Thunder Avatar by chance? So with that, I am curious. I will be very interested to see where this goes forward.
Yeah.
And, only time is going to tell. But with this, we talked about this for over an hour.
No.
No.
Yes.
We were trying so hard.
This has been awesome. Dusty, you're a natural at this. It's like you've done this before.
Oh my goodness.
You would think that you have a podcast, and you think that you would you have like a big website. Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me every day on micechat.com, and of course all the related social media. We even have one of those Tic Tac accounts.
Oh, I've heard of those.
I also do a lot of tours up at Walt Disney's 1930s estate on Woking Way. We're helping to preserve Walt's history, so we lived there from the 30s to about 1950. And for this being Disney 100, there might be some big things happening up there. I'm going to be announcing some events soon for the Walt Disney birthplace. I helped save the house that Walt Disney was born in,
Yes.
1901. And we're going to be doing some fundraisers around Roy Disney's birthday in June and Walt Disney's birthplace in December, and get that project finished. The house has been saved, restored. It looks amazing, but their goal is to install kind of interactive museum exhibits. So not like a museum where you go in and you see artifacts, but what it looked like when Walt was born, and what the sounds would be, what the city of Chicago looked like at that time. And that's what their goal is. So you'll find out more about that. You
I
can
really
follow me
love
at
that.
Mice Chat. Yeah.
Love that.
So you can find-
Micechat.com.
Just do a quick search on the Google, and you'll find it. Or the Tic Tac.
Google me.
Yeah.
But not really. Just go directly to micechat.com.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a great resource. It's a very great resource. Dusty, thank you very much for joining us here. Round of applause for Dusty Sage.
Well, thank you guys. Amazing.
Dennis, was that a question that you had? Oh, like a
was
hand
a
of solidarity.
pause sign.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's wrap this up the way that we usually do.
Okay.
So when we point at you, Dusty, I want you just to say, please watch your language, okay? All right, so as you exit, please watch your head and watch your step.
And if you miss your step or hit your head,
Watch your language, because this is the Backside of Water podcast, and there
Yeah!
are children everywhere.
Yeah!